Welcome to the 757 Renaissance Man Podcast. On this episode, we chop it up with Chester Benton. We get a history lesson about early black radio in the 757. We discuss Daddy Jack Homlmes, the Master Storyteller, how Chester P. got to WRIP, how he designed the after-school rap attack in HJ Ellison, the Soul Ranger and the Shoutouts, how WRIP influenced KDAY in LA, the legend of Bobby J and E.T., Chic and Unique, Getting Jacked by Eazy. Let's get a history lesson with Chester Benton. All right.
All right. So what's going on, man?
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's
an honor to talk to you.
All right. Well, you know, I know all about you, so glad to see the face.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let me go ahead and start and say hello to everybody out there. This is the 757 Renaissance Man Podcast. I'm here live in full effect with Mr. Chester Benton. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Was out enjoying that great weather we had today and hoping that it lasts. Maybe it's really springtime, huh?
Yeah, I can tell you, I'm so ready for springtime.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get out and get some air. I want to thank you because you have shaped a lot of the music I grew up listening to.
Okay.
I had I heard an interview with you a couple weeks ago, and I didn't know as much about you as I hope we can find out today. I didn't know you had such a hand in WRIP.
I actually started my career at 15 years old in the broadcast at WHIH. But I got my first real paying job at WRIP.
Yes, I remember. I'm just old enough where I can remember radio going from Daddy Jack Homlmes all the way up to the Buddha Brothers. And
okay.
All that. They all had a start in a career, because Daddy Jack Homlmes, by the time he had got to WRP, he already had a career. Right.
Jack actually was the first black radio announcer in Virginia and one of the original 13 black radio announcers in the United States.
Wow.
And Jack was my mentor. He taught me so much, not only about being on the air, but how to conduct myself off the air, and establish two different personalities, a personality for entertainment and a personality for business. He went through so much. Can you imagine that at the time that he was in radio, there were only 13 black announcers in the whole United States, and probably in all the media, we're talking radio, television, everything. There were probably no more than 15 or 20 blacks that had been given that opportunity.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, he used to wake me up for school every morning. If you ain't here, get up from there. It wasn't a weekday.
Yeah, that was my man, Jack Homlmes. Like I say, he was such a great inspiration. And just recently, I think it's been 2 years now, I did get him inducted into the Walk of Fame. We have a local Virginia Walk of Fame on Granby Street in Norfolk, right in front of the Nova. Okay. And if you ever get a chance to walk down there, you'll see Jack Homlmes and Ruth Brown and a lot of the greats from the Hampton Roads area. They have the same type of situation we have in California. They actually have stars on that Walk of Fame in downtown Norfolk.
Okay, definitely. I didn't know. I go down there. Yeah, I need to check that out next time I go.
Yeah, yeah. I just walked down one day. You'll see Gary Barnes, who was one of the early pioneers of music from here. Ruth Brown, who was another early pioneer. Bruce Hornsby from Williamsburg.
Yeah.
And this last one, I have Jack Homlmes and also a young fellow by the name of Gordon Banks and another fellow named Leonard Guest. All have stars down there. So if you get an opportunity to go down and check them out.
So tell me how you started in radio. What got you involved?
Well, I'm from Portsmouth, and believe it or not, Portsmouth is the home of so many great radio announcers. If you go back to the early days of radio, the guy named the Master Storyteller, Frank Howison.
I remember him. Yeah.
I started working with him. He lived in Truxton. Jack Homlmes actually lived on Truxton Avenue. Nick Carr was also from Truxton. So I wanted to be a football player. Okay. I thought I was going to have a little speed, and I thought I was going to be this great football player. And once I got to college, I found out that I was just too small. They were going to kill me the first week. So right behind the practice field for the football team, there was a radio club. And I had always had an interest in entertaining because I did dances and I worked with Hot Dog and I worked with the Soul Ranger. They were all from the neighborhood, and I used to spin records with them. And then after finding out that I couldn't be a football player, I actually walked into the radio club, and that's where I started my professional career at Norfolk State University as the member of the Norfolk State University, Norfolk State College back in those days, radio club.
Really? Okay. I didn't know that. I spent some time at the Norfolk State radio station myself when I was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a great opportunity. I started, we had a program called the Spartan Hour, which I put into progress where we would, as the students, because we didn't have campus radio at the time. So they gave us an hour a week where we could go on the radio and talk. A guy named Scotty Andrews gave me that opportunity. From there, I got a call from Jack, say, boy, if you're going to be on radio, you need to come over here with us because this is where you started. So I ended up going over, and he gave me a job. Jack gave me a job, and I worked with Soul Ranger very closely. I started off 7 p.m. to 12 midnight. I moved up to afternoon drive, 3 to 7. I became program director, and when I became program director, I started making, a lot of different changes in the music style of WRAP. We were one of the first stations in the country to be an all rap station.
So let me tell you how that touches me, because we used to get off the school bus at 3:30. Hang out a few minutes, and everybody will run home by 4 o'clock to catch HJ Ellison in the Rap Attack.
And believe it or not, that was designed. What happened, I had worked at WRAP. I left WRAP, and I went over to WOWI. And so the people at WRAP asked me to come back. Well, my ratings at WOWI had become very high. So when I came back to WRAP, I had to find a way to beat my ratings. So that's when a friend of mine, a guy named, I was looking for an opening, and my cousin, his name is Ed Joyner. Ed Joyner told me to come up to New York. They had this new music up there called rap music. So I went up to New York, and I was introduced to this guy named DJ Hollywood. DJ Hollywood was a DJ that would go from club to club and rap. I also had the privilege of meeting Russell Simmons at the time, who was actually a dance promoter. He promoted dances in different clubs. And he actually worked for Ed Joyner as his handbill and publicity guy while he was in college. So I established that relationship with them. Then I had to come back and convince the owners about how we could play this music that they had never heard of. Mm-hmm. And once I found that out, I had to convince them to allow me to do rap music in the afternoon. If you have any familiarity with radio, your morning drive and your afternoon drive is the most important points of making money. Yeah. So I had to create a platform to show them that I can make money in the afternoon playing this music that they hadn't heard of. So in doing my research, I basically studied the template of McDonald's. Mm-hmm. If you go back and you remember listening to the Rap Attack and how I had Rap Man and all of these different promotions, they all come from a McDonald's template. How to reach kids, who controls the radio between 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock. The kids. Mm-hmm. So I had to do the research and figure out that the kids would take control of the radios, whether they were riding in the car with their parents or whether they were, like you said, you just go home. And we actually got it approved. And I started, the Rap Attack was originally the after school Rap Attack. Mm-hmm. That was the original. And then I brought in another guy named Frank James, and he didn't know anything about mixing. And we had to go up to New York and figure out how to mix records. Now, we're talking about mixing records on Gates turntables, which is this huge old turntable. So Frank had to learn the mix from that. So with that format, I created HJ with the After School Rap Attack, mm-hmm. Frank James with the master mixer with the mixing, and then in the evenings when things were winding down around 9:30, I brought Soul Ranger mm-hmm. back, and this was the first time that people had the telephones where you could punch other people in. Uh-huh. So he would do shout outs and put all of these young girls on the phones at night. And it would be 5 or 6 of them on talking at the same time. So this was the first.
Let me tell you how you are so narrating my childhood.
Okay.
I was one of those kids that used to call in the Soul Ranger and want to give a shout out to Becky and her mm-hmm. loved one. And
yeah. So we became very successful with that rap format at WRAP, and we started getting nationwide attention. The company that I worked for was a company called Rollins Incorporated, mm-hmm. and they also are on KDAY in Los Angeles, which is called KDAY. Okay. So they flew me down to Atlanta, and they say, how can we duplicate what we're doing in Norfolk at KDAY? Mm-hmm. So I went out to California for a while, and we established a similar format to what we had at RAP at KDAY, and we started making noise out there. So, but we were basically instrumental in creating rap all across the country. It started here. It actually started in New York, but the outlet where you could get multiple play 24 hours a day, WRAP in Norfolk was the first station to do that.
Yeah, and it was so funny that I used to have cousins out west that used to come here and listen to the music, and it was almost just like coming to New York. Yeah.
Well, we had all of the early pioneers in rap that came here. You know, when Russell first started with Crush Groove, I played some of his records. When they started the stuff with Luke and the Me So Crazy and all that stuff that he had from down in Miami. Uh-huh. Yeah, we spearheaded that. Rapping Duke, Run DMC, I brought them here. I used to bring them here to do things for Portsmouth, for the Parks and Recreation of Portsmouth. We would bring Run DMC, Public Enemy. All of the groups just hung out when they came at WRAP Studios because we were the ones that were instrumental in launching their careers.
Wow. I knew that you was going to teach me something today.
Yeah.
So,
So,
go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I mean, so that's, a lot of people don't really know the importance of the Hampton Roads area. Hampton Roads is a transit area. It's a big military area.
Right.
So a lot of the things that we do here, when you have the sailors that are stationed on the ships, they're stationed on the ships here, but when they go home, they start talking about what was happening in Norfolk, Virginia. And other radio stations across the country start duplicating those formats and things. So, we played a very important role in rap music.
Yes, yes. So, tell me about your relationship with Bobby J.
Well, I grew up listening to Bob as a kid. Bob was working. He was a little older than I was, and I grew up listening to Bob as a kid. Bob was probably one of the most popular DJs. He went by the name of BJ the DJ and Wolfie at WHIH back in his early career. After I left WRAP and went to Wowie, when I came back, and I brought Jack Homlmes back on the air in the mornings with me. I was doing the morning show. The first thing Jack told me to do was go get Bob. And Bob was downtown Norfolk at the time. I mean, downtown Portsmouth. He had a record store called Soul University Records. So I brought Bob back on the air, and that's when Bob started the Oldie But Goodie show. And he did the voice of Bob and Wolfie. But when he came back, because E.T. was a big character, he started doing the character of Bobby J and E.T. And then we brought in Miss Dingaling, and he started doing the letter. But Bob was just a great announcer, a great personality, and a great entertainer. And his show became one of the most popular shows around. Because, we used to do this thing that you are the king of your castle and tell men, stand up for yourself, stand up for your rights, don't let a woman tell you to do anything. And he used that, and it would always cause controversy between the man and the woman. And it was just fun. It was just a great time. And Bob Jackson was a character. As you saw him or heard him on the radio, he was just like that in person. And we did a couple of business ventures together. My first Chic and Unique, we were partners. My first Chic and Unique was at on High Street. We were partners. And when we moved to George Washington Highway, he was my partner for a while. And then he ventured off into another venture. But we were very close friends right up until the time that he passed. In fact, when he passed, I managed a couple of radio stations now, WPCE, which is a gospel station, WGPL. But in Edenton, North Carolina, I managed a station called WBXB2B. And Bob was on the air. He was my 7 to 12 midnight guy doing the Oldie But Goodie show at the time that he passed.
Wow. So let's well, Bobby J is very influential too. I think it's a lot of music I wouldn't have been exposed to if it weren't for him. And he taught me the showmanship of radio that I think is missing now in radio. His personality, he had a set show. At a certain time of the day, Bobby J was going to do a certain skit.
Yeah. Well, when in the 70s and 60s, black radio was about personality. And it was just like on TV now. You come in, you get ratings. If you don't get ratings, you don't have a job. So that means that everybody had to be creative, and they had to have that showmanship. And that's one of the things that if we go back to the announcers that worked from Jack Homlmes, because see, Jack Homlmes was an entertainer first.
Right.
He used to sing with big bands. He was a big band singer, and he knew how to entertain. So he was entertainment first. So everybody that came in under Jack understood that once you open up that mic, you had to be an entertainer. and you couldn't stick with something that you did yesterday or the day before. You had to always be creative. You had to always be on top of your game, because if you weren't on top of your game, you wouldn't have a job.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. You just named like a whole bunch of my favorite DJs growing up.
Yeah, and Bob was just an entertainer. He was just creative. I mean, and I didn't know him then, but they say that even when he was at school at Norcom High School, before he was a DJ, he had that same personality. He was real creative. He was real flamboyant, and people just loved it.
So let's talk about Chic and Unique.
Okay.
I remember,
Chic.
The first, I love Chic and Unique. Between you, DJ's Records and Tapes, and a little bit later on, Broadway Records up the street, y'all got all my little grass cutting allowance money when I was a kid.
Well, Chic and Unique was a business that I started. Well, basically, when I left RAP the first time, I called myself retiring. So I said, I'm going to retire. And I was looking for a business. And the thing that I knew was music. So, like I said, we started Chic and Unique. One of the great things about Chic and Unique is that I had a personal relationship with most of the record companies. Mm-hmm. So when a record would come out, I would get the record first.
Right.
And so we had so many records, so many 12 inches that other stores didn't even know about. We would get them. And then the other thing is that a lot of the artists, when they came to town, they would come to Chic and Unique. I remember Run DMC just walking in off the street, coming in and spending the day. Flavor Flav hung out there. NBA ball players, Earl of Pearl came by. Billy Ocean, In Vogue, Murray J. I mean, everybody, when they came to town, they would come hang out at Chic and Unique. And because of my relationship with Russell Simmons, we were the first in the area to carry Fat Farm gear. Okay. So whenever Russell would get like the new Fat Farm jacket or the sweats or anything like that, he would send them and I would put them in the window and people would come by, just to purchase that. So we were different from most record stores because most record stores just carried records, but we also carried records and we also carried clothing. We were probably one of the first stores to actually carry what you call the hip hop clothes. Mm-hmm. The hats and the Run DMC hats and the jerseys and for the girls, the jeans that they were wearing, the flower jeans. We were probably one of the first to combine music and entertainment into one store.
Yes, I remember. All right, so the one I've bought a lot of music and stuff from you over my days, but the two I remember the most. The first one was Dr. Dre Chronic. And okay. I bought it from you and I had to hide it from my mama. And then ironically, the second one I remember, I had just graduated from high school, started college. A friend of mine came in there and we went half on the Snoop Dogg tape.
Okay.
Which I ended up having to buy a whole nother one because somebody forgot we went half on it.
One of the things that we used to do is that when they started coming out with the explicit lyrics, mm-hmm. right, we would always have the clean versions that we would put out, and we would have the explicit lyric because we didn't want to kind of sell the explicit lyric ones to the kids, mm-hmm. but somehow the kids always ended up getting the explicit lyric versions, and we had parents coming back in there. I mean, I'll never forget. The CD was by not Dougie Fresh, but Slick Rick, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so I only thought about Slick Rick as this guy that was on the CD with Dougie Fresh. Uh-huh. So I sold this kid a CD. And man, I don't even think he ever got it home and opened it up. and it had all of these explicit lyrics, all of these suggestive sayings. Man, that kid's mother came in that store and cussed me out. And I was sitting there and she said, "Did you sell my son this?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Who is that?" I said, "Slick Rick." So I'm trying to defend rap. And she started reading the names off the back of that CD. Man, I didn't even know how to apologize to her because I had never looked into it like that. I've never actually, when the explicit lyrics came out, I never read the back of the covers. I never really listened to the songs. So I didn't know how vulgar it was. So I ended up giving her money back and talking to her for a while after but she read me the riot act. Said, "My son is 12 years old and he's listening to this stuff." So, yeah.
I also remember Chic and Unique as one of the record stores you can go to and actually ask to hear the music.
Yeah.
Because that was
Well,
important.
we were we were full service, and and the kids that came in at that time were kids that you could trust.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't everybody coming in wanting to rob you. We had people that would come in the store and listen to music and stay in there for hour and a half.
I was one of those people. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't have any problems about anybody running in trying to steal or rob. We never had a robbery attempt. Mm-hmm. We, in fact, one of our trademarks were we were the only store that was open on Christmas Eve until midnight. Mm-hmm. And I would start a remote, and Jack would come out and do all of the DJs at WRAP would come out and support me on Christmas Eve. I would do food and everything, had security guard, and we would start our remote at 4:00, mm-hmm. and we would stay open until midnight. So all the stores were closing at 6, and we would stay open at midnight. And one of the things that we did was that going into October, November, I would always buy toys. And at the end of the night, at Christmas Eve, any toys that we had left over, we gave them to the people that needed them. So it was sort of like fun. We made money, but we also gave back to the community.
How do you think the city of Portsmouth has changed from that time to now?
Well, the city, just like everything in the world, has changed because, first of all, there's no discipline. Mm-hmm. among the kids with their parents. The kids are running the ship. Mm-hmm. And because the kids are running the ship, they do what they want to do. And the parents are not involved. Like I was telling you the story about, I sold the kid the CD, and the same hour, the mother brought the CD back. Right. Well, kids now, they do what they want to do, and the parents don't pay them any attention. In fact, the parents are probably out doing something else. And so you have kids raising themselves, while the mothers and the fathers, or if there are fathers, are somewhere else. The crime in Portsmouth, and it's not crime, people robbing people, it's gang wars. Mm-hmm. So the kids now are in gangs more than they were back. I mean, we had activities. We played football, we ran track, we played basketball. We had so many different activities for the kids. Those activities are not there. So if you don't raise your child, the streets will raise your child. Yeah. And that's what's been happening in Portsmouth. So instead of being a great football player or a great track star or a great baseball player, they become great in the game. Remember that when you're young, you're always looking for something to identify with. And you're always looking for something to give you that edge over the next guy. So if you were a great basketball player, people would say, "Oh, such and such, Sean is a great basketball player. They wanted him on his team." And, and that gave you that little spike that you needed. Now we don't have that. So what do? They put you in the game. Mm-hmm. And instead of Sean becoming a great basketball player, Sean shot 6 people. And that's how Sean gets his prop. Sean robbed the filling station. That's how Sean gets his prop. So I think the city needs to go back to more recreation, mm-hmm. more recreation facilities, and more men that will become mentors to the kids and give them something to do so that they don't look for that gang as their father or that gang as their leader. They look to excel in sports or in the band or in something other than the gangs.
Yes, sir. I remember being younger, we had not only like the sports, but and you probably had a hand at it too, being working with WIP, where they used to take like the McDonald's, and they would
Mm-hmm.
let the kids come to the McDonald's, and they'll have a little talent show or a little step show. 'Cause I remember
Mm-hmm.
step shows were real big back then. And then if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
doing the step show, you gotta during the week you gotta do your work, then you gotta practice, you gotta get your little routine down. So it gave us outlets to have to fill up our time, and then feel like feel appreciated, feel like we actually did something when it was time for the show.
One of the things that I initiated with rap music was the rap contest. We used to always have the Black History Month rap contest. We always had several rap contests throughout the year where you could go and create rap and raps, and you would win prizes and get free concert tickets and things for having the best raps. And that was another thing. One of my craziest stories is that I defended rap music because rap music to me was sort of like bebop. It was a chance where you get a chance to improvise and express yourself. So in my presentation, that's one of the selling points that I use, is that it gives you an opportunity to improvise and be yourself. You have to learn the basics. Once you learn the basics, then you can improvise. And that's what rap music was all about. So NWA, this is one of the craziest stories that I guess that I can tell. I was programming WRAP and I was programming KDAY. So I go out to LA and I'm on a panel there. And I had a program director by the name of Jack Patterson, and I wouldn't allow him to play NWA because NWA had so much profanity in it at the time, and I just didn't feel that it was the right music to be programming the kids. So I come off the panel, and here's NWA waiting for me, right? And they're saying, so you the such and such and such won't allow them to play our music? And I say, yeah. We want to jack you. We're going to jack you right now. Well, I don't know what jack means, so I'm going, yeah. So here it is Dr. Dre, Eazy. I mean, these cats, I didn't know anything about any of them. So I finally, after I figured out that they were really going to jack me, I said, well, let's sit down and talk about this thing. So I set up a meeting with Eazy. We went out to dinner, and we were talking. And being from the East Coast and naive, I didn't have any idea that these cats were real killers. That jacking you was just part of their nature. So I'm sitting down with Eazy, and Eazy says to me, he said, "How come you will not allow our music that's telling the kids about what's going on in their life to be played on the radio?" And so I said to Eazy, it's profanity. It's cussing all through all of your records. I said, would you want your kids growing up listening to this? And Eazy looked me straight in the eye and he said, the same kids that you're trying to protect from our music, their parents are telling them, you ain't gonna play that blah, blah, blah stuff in my house. He said that parents have exposed them to more profanity by the time that they're 5 years old than we will ever expose them to. And I had to sit back and think about that. I said, wow, this cat is really making sense. So we compromised, and this is where the first, what you call edit comes in, radio edits, because I instructed my guy to see what he could do to take the profanity out, beep it, put something in, so that we could play their records. And that's how we started to play NWA at KDAY in Los Angeles.
Wow. And that was big because that was their home radio station.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was their home base.
Okay. And
I didn't know that the girl that saved them from, it's crazy. The young lady that saved them from jacking me at the time was a young lady by the name of Michelle A.
Yeah, okay.
And Michelle A had this great record called Something in Your Heart or something.
Yeah. And I bought that. I bought that tape from you.
And we had been playing that, and I had interviewed her, and she said, "No, he ain't bad. He ain't a bad guy. You know, he's been playing my records. He interviewed me." And I didn't know at the time that she was going with Suge Knight and Dr.
Dre, right?
So it's a small world. It's just a small world.
All right, so I got to ask you for one more hip hop story.
All right.
Any artist that you have a unique experience with?
Yeah, Flavor Flav.
Okay.
And you know, I really found out that this guy was a very intelligent guy. I brought Flavor Flav in to the morning show. Mm-hmm. I interviewed him in the morning. He would not leave the radio station. You know, usually when you do an interview lasts 5 minutes at the most. Uh-huh. Flavor Flav got to the station at 7:30 in the morning. Uh-huh. He interviewed on my show, came back, interviewed on the midday show, stayed there, did all of the rap attack with HJ, was home at night with Frank James, and didn't leave until Soul Ranger went off. We could not get him we couldn't get him out of the station. But what I found out during that period with Flavor Flav, that this was really an intelligent guy. Mm-hmm. He told me that he wanted to be a comic book hero. Mm-hmm. And then one of the things that he told me is that the stuff that he was doing on stage, you know how when Flav was on stage, he'd be running all around and jumping up and down and acting crazy. He said this was all a precision routine that was worked out. And if you watched it closely, when it came to be on cue, he was always in the right spot. Huh. Huh. And so at first I just thought he was just this crazy guy that was running around with a clock around his neck. But after spending the whole day with him, I found out that he was a guy that had plans, that he created the character, that he studied his part, he did his homework, and he was well prepared. When he hit the stage, he was an entertainer. When he was off the stage, he was a different person. Wow.
All right, so now tell me about your brother and your store.
My brother Michael, we started out when I was a kid. Well, not a kid. When I was in Norfolk State, I got a job working for a company called Pride's Men's Shop. Mm-hmm. And at the time, Pride's was a pot pawn shop. And I had talked the guy, Mr. Orleans at the time, who was the owner, and to make it a men's store. Mm-hmm. And so we started selling men clothes. Well, by the time I got, I'll say like about 21, Mr. Orleans had grown to build this business into Gents Men's Shop.
Okay, I remember that.
And he said that he wanted me to manage a store. And I told him that, you know, I'm in radio now, man. I'm living the life. I ain't going to be selling no clothes. So he asked me, you know, what could he do for me? And I told him to give my brother a job because Mike was just graduating from Manor. So Mr. Orleans brought Mike in. Mike worked for Mr. Orleans for about 15 years. He actually managed 2 or 3 of the Gents stores. He later, when Gents closed down, he went to work for Stock and Legham. Mr. Sonny Legham is Stock and Legham. Well, he worked for Stock and Legham or Sonny Legham for 15 years, and Mr. Legham was getting ready to retire. So Mr. Legham came to Mike and said, look, so we're getting ready to retire. We want to keep the store's name and integrity, because this is what my family built. And we're looking for a family that can continue the tradition. So Mike came to me and my oldest brother and said that we had this opportunity to buy stock in Legham, and Mr. Legham didn't want to just sell the store to anybody. He wanted to sell it to a family that was going to continue the tradition of quality merchandise, good service, and and friendly customer service relationship with people. So we got together, and Mike is the CEO of the company, and we purchased stock in Legham. We later moved and opened up a store up in Maryland, Bowie, Maryland. We ran that for about 4 years, but then we came back and decided to concentrate everything into the Norfolk store. And in fact, on my birthday was when we closed the deal about 5 years ago. And Mike has been running it, and we run it with the same quality. Especially in stock and Legham is hats, men's hats. And you find that as you travel across the country, there are people that love hats. Some of our great hats is Bossolinos, and those are very expensive hat. It runs you about $450, $500 a hat. Stetson, Dobbs, Biltmore, Kango. We're probably the largest company that sells hats. We have the largest selection of hats on the East Coast. And we give you quality service, with your hats. We do sell suits and shoes and things like that, but hats is our main thing. So if you see me on, Facebook sometime, every week I do a different hat.
Right.
And just to let people know that you can change your whole style, you can change your whole image, you can change who you are with the right hat. And so that's what we do. We will be moving in the next 60 days, but we're only moving about 4 or 5 doors down. We're moving from where we are, our present location, because the company lost the lease on the building. So we're moving down the street about 2 or 3 blocks. We're going to be having a great 2 sales at one. One, we're going to have a clearance sale, and then right around Easter time, we're going to have a grand opening or grand reopening sale. And Mike planning to continue to run the business, he said, for another 5 to 10 years. And hopefully somebody in the family will want to take over and continue that. But I'm what you call retired but never stopped working. So, because, you just got to, you got to keep your youth.
Yeah.
You got to stay young. Yeah. And so, I work with him on Saturdays and special occasions when I'm not running the radio stations. And I also do Chester Beach Tribute to Motown. If you get a chance, we didn't do anything last year, but we do.
You used to come
work
out here to
Virginia
Hampton.
Beach.
Yeah, you used to come out here to Hampton all the time.
Yeah. So where do you stay, in Hampton, or are you
downtown Hampton?
Still?
No, I live over here. Yeah, I still grew up there. I still come out there every Sunday. My mama still lives in Camelot. I still do Sunday dinner out that way. But yeah, I moved to Hampton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was great talking to you. I know your family. I know your family from when I was a kid. In fact, Willie and I were best friends from the time that we were in first grade, all the way through college, and we still stay in contact. And when your mom, the house that's on Olmsted was being remodeled, they actually lived in the garage. They turned the garage into a house. So, and while their house was built, because that house on Olmsted, I think it was built from the ground. So I've been a part of that family since day one.
Well, I think I'm about to come see you. I'm going to come see you this weekend and get me a fresh Kango.
Yeah, I'll hook you up with Kangos. We're getting ready to get the new spring shipment of Kangos in now.
I need a Kango. So give everybody the address and phone number, how they can get in touch with you at the store.
All you have to do is go to stockandlegham.com.
Okay.
And all the information is there. We're on Granby Street in Norfolk. And if you're interested in a hat, suits, we have, if you like the gator shoes or the crocodile shoes, if you like, if you want to spend that type of money, we have those for you. And then we have personal service. When you come in, if you don't know exactly what you want, we can show you basically what you want. You can try it on. We have fitting rooms. All of our alterations are free. And if you don't want to come in the store, you can go to stockandlegging.com and you can order whatever you want, and we can have it, ship it to you, or you can come pick it up.
Mr. Benton, I really want to thank you. You made my evening tonight. You took me down memory lane, and you gave me a history lesson. You can't beat that.
Okay, well, it was a deep pleasure talking to you. And, one of the things that I enjoy so much is finding people in your age group, in your demo, that's really looking to make something of themselves, that change the image of what people in my generation think about people in the younger generation. So I'm very proud of you, and I'm proud that you're taking on this venture, and I'm sure with your family background and your history and your drive that you're going to do well.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a conversation with Mr. Chester Benton.